Ladies and gentlemen, it's football time in Oklahoma. The offseason is gone, and Sooner football is back, and so is the Scooter Pod. But we've never left you. But now we're actually talking about real football games. I'm Bobby Howard. With me today, my co-host, Jamison Maxwell, Ty Lee. And we're here to talk about Game 1. The Oklahoma Sooners and the Arkansas State Red Wolves. I'm thrilled about it. And before we get into this a little deeper, there's big recruiting news that happened. We know about that. That's why we recorded a little mini episode. If you're listening on podcast form, just scroll down and find it. It's there, I promise. So if you want to listen to that, go listen to that. If you're listening on YouTube, we have the video up already. Go check that out. But after you do this one. So anyways, guys, how are we feeling? Ty, I want to hear from you first. How you feeling about the season coming up? Exciting stuff that we're actually finally here.
Yeah, I'm very excited. We talked about it in our Big 12 preview, but OU has a astonishingly easy schedule. I was thinking about this the other day, but I don't know that I can remember in our lifetime, so going back to the late mid-90s, OU having an easier schedule. Obviously, you never know. Teams can always shock people. Teams can always turn out to be a lot better than expectations, but I think that this should be a good confidence-building year for this OU team, a good final ride in the Big 12. Unfortunately, we're not going to get to play a lot of those teams, but like we talked about, ultimately that might hurt these teams by just giving us an easier path, hopefully, to the Big 12 championship game. So I have pretty high expectations for this team, and I'm feeling good about our ability to put out a product that should win, a good number of games this year.
I'm with you. I think this is a team that can win a lot of games. I think the schedule helps that. It feels like a training wheel season before the SEC. So I think to me that looking at improvement, looking at wins, that's exactly what I'm the most excited about. Jamison, your thoughts entering the season opener?
Yeah, here's the thing. If you're expecting us to break down the Arkansas State football team and what they have deficiency-wise that OU can go after, that's not this podcast. We're going to be centered more so on what I'm looking for and what we are looking for in OU this first game and kind of what we're looking for in trends for the rest of the season. So it's going to be a fun one. I feel like a lot of my takes are similar to that I had in the spring game, but screw it. Let's just talk about it.
Yeah, let's just kind of dive in. This is a very OU focused episode because, frankly, there's not a ton to talk about. Usually these cupcake games early, there's not a ton to talk about. Sorry to Arkansas State fans looking for us to dive deep into this one, but
their quarterback's last name, Bobby, is Shrout.
Ooh, that's not good. I know their quarterback. Their quarterback last year's. That's Shroud is bad. That's bad. Last year, their quarterback actually is last year's quarterback ended up going to the NFL for them. So I guess they're replacing that, which is a bummer. I guess their running back played at Iowa State for a while, so he's probably pretty solid. But other than that, the only thing I know about Arkansas State is Butch Jones, former Tennessee head coach. We've seen him in the past. He was coaching Tennessee during that 2014 season, the 2015 season where we had that epic game in Neyland, a real champion of life, as he called himself. I'm not sure if Arkansas State, if they're champions of life or not, but
no,
yeah, they're not champions of much. I'll say that
they were 3-9 last year. Let's just put that in perspective.
Yeah, this is I mean, Ty brought up a good point. You never know with games; they can be surprises. Just look at USC. We didn't think they would probably none of us on the weekend spread thought they would battle with San Jose State, but well, there you go. You never know. But Arkansas State, they aren't that guy, pal. So let's talk about the Sooners we're excited to see. So Ty, I'll kick it to you to start off. What are you most excited to look for in game one for OU?
Really, what I want to see, I think, comes down to coaching things, if I were to put it all in one broad category. I mean, I feel like we hit on this every single start of the season, but what I don't want to see is players looking confused or out of position. I almost see this And again, no disrespect to Arkansas State, but this should be a spring game-like scenario. It's a scenario where people are coming out there and they're hitting you full force. You have real refs, real game clock, everything else, but it essentially should be a practice situation for this OU squad. And that's not to talk up OU. I mean, that's what these early games are designed for pretty much everyone. So I don't want to see people out of position, people not knowing their assignments, people confused about just formations and where they should be. And then from there, what I also want to see is just a really conservative use of the people that we have. Take them out there, knock the rust off, get some real game reps in for who we expect to be our starting receivers. I want to see, as little running as possible from, almost everyone, because you just we're not going to get a whole lot of value in adding that wear and tear on our people who we're going to need to rely on late in the season. So I think if I had to one big category coaching and then break that down into people need to know what they're doing, look like they know what they're doing, and then make sure that we're not burning up our playbook or adding unnecessary wear and tear to our players in a game like this.
I agree. Keep it simple, just straightforward. Don't get crazy. And, knowing how usually these go, they know not to go crazy on poor Arkansas State. I know you went 6-7, but at the same time, don't let out your anger on them, and they know that they're smart about that, and I bet we'll see that for sure. Jamison, what are you looking forward to?
Yeah, it's usually with these. I'm not really looking too much at like your starters. The starters are going to go out there and they're going to do things other than like new guys like Andrew Anthony. I'm more looking at like the guys on the second spot. Nick Anderson for one. I think that a guy can be like that number 3 outside wide receiver. Can he go out and make some big time plays with his frame and kind of show the fans I'm here and I can actually be, a contributor to this offense? I think the outside wide receiver room has a lot of opportunity, and guys like Nick Anderson, Andrell, Anthony, and Jaquays Petaway would be really fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. That receiver room, I think, is the one I'm most excited about. And every year, it's the groups that have a lot of newcomers, a lot of new fresh blood in there. And the wide receiver group is, other than Drake Stoops and a little bit of Gavin Freeman, just full of guys we haven't seen. Andrew Anthony being one of them. And if you look at his stats at Michigan, not a lot to be excited about in his 2 years there. Only 4 touchdowns, 328 yards. But he's a guy who I think will be pretty impactful, and it'll be fun to see him a little bit. Just like in the spring game, maybe we don't see a ton of him in terms of what he fully can do. And obviously staffs have changed, but we've seen wide receivers pop up in the middle of the year out of nowhere. Hollywood Brown, to say the least. So yeah, Anthony we might not see the crazy level of production until later, but who knows on that. But I will say
the thing is, like, speed guys are going to do really well, Bobby. It's like speed guys are going to do really well whenever you have like inferior competition. I obviously don't want to sound arrogant here, but seriously, like Arkansas State is not one of our biggest games of the season. And can we get a guy like Andrew Anthony running deep free and Dylan Gabriel hitting him in stride? I understand we have a lot to talk about in Dylan Gabriel and his deep field accuracy and his accuracy in general, but like, can we see a big play like that where he gets these guys in stride and get long touchdowns to the point where we can run up the score early and bring in our backups in the second half?
Here
you got
with Andrew Anthony specifically. If we can turn the graphic back, because I'll keep it focused on him. We have time for Dylan Gabriel. We'll get into that, but I think one thing that really comes to mind with Andrew Anthony is it just seems like at the college level, a lot of these defenses only have like 1 or 2 good corners, usually like 1 good corner, 1 good safety. So sometimes it's almost better to be the WR2, I think, at the college level, open up a lot more opportunities. That was the first time I got to work that in this season. Very excited. I will be working that again weekly. But there's truth to that, though. That's more than just a running joke. If you have that guy who maybe isn't the flashiest, but obviously, super highly recruited guy, if he came from Michigan, performed well enough there and has now come to OU, and I think he's in a great position. to be sort of slept on or underappreciated by defenses, especially early in the season. Obviously, Arkansas State is Arkansas State, but if you have a guy who's unproven coming in, he might be the better receiver, if you're comparing him to Drake Stoops or someone else, but you just have that name recognition that's in the game tape that people are going to recognize. It can really be a tremendous advantage. So good to see the depth. Where we're not going to see depth is in Dylan Gabriel's ability to complete passes. If those go beyond like 5 yards, he just turns into Dak Prescott.
Well, okay, here we go.
Okay, I'll dive into it because I think Dylan Gabriel, like, even though we're not opening up the playbook, some of the biggest issues with Gabriel last year were just
his skills.
Not skills. It's the tiny things, and he wasn't quite hitting them against UTEP or Kent State in those early games. So you could kind of see the cracks early. I feel like against kind of bad competition, this is a good, in-game action situation to, display that you're not overthrowing guys, your timing's right, you're finishing better on third downs. I feel like that's what I want to see out of QB1 with Dylan Gabriel is just tight, more tidiness, a better understand, maybe less of an understanding, but more comfort in the system, and just better execution. I think this is a really good chance and opportunity for him to really display that.
Yeah, that's definitely coming out strong right out the gate is a big deal. Last year I thought it was a big deal having the first 3 drives of this OU football team having touchdowns. I understand we were playing UTEP, but you need these kinds of momentum plays to go out and show that, hey, this is going to be a game that we're going to put our foot down on their throat and that we have some things that we can look forward to for the rest of the season. Now, if we go 3 and out in the first drive, I don't want to hear mutters from the stadium, but I guarantee you there's going to. People are hurt because this team went 6-7 last year, and they want 59-0 games now in this first game of the season to help the team, help the fans become more optimistic.
Yeah, I think we are looking for definitive, solid football, and I think I think even though it's not everything how you perform in these early games, it can be an indicator of how you do across the board. If you take care of business, if you're focused, if you're solid, even though you might not be tested as much by the defense, you're kind of testing yourself, how well you focus on attention to detail, how well you really go at it. So to me, I think that starts and ends with Dylan Gabriel offensively in terms of getting the job done.
Ty, is there anything Dylan Gabriel could do this year, in all seriousness, all jokes aside, that can turn your narrative of like saying Dylan Gabriel is a poor quarterback? What would he do? What would he have to do to prove you wrong?
So this is serious, but then also a joke, right? Like complete a pass beyond 20 yards would be somewhere to start. But yeah, no, I'm not.
Write it down and clip it, because whenever he gets a 20-yard pass.
Listen, I'm not 100% right. I'm not entrenched in this take where I just can't get out, right? Turn it back a couple years. I was hating on Spencer Rattler. Now I'm praying that he can somehow return, because we would have at least won 8 games last year if we had him. So it can always get worse, right? And it reminds me of, and not to do this to Landry Jones, he's light years beyond where Spencer and Dylan Gabriel are, but like everyone thought that Landry Jones was not great because he just had to follow Sam Bradford. Right, like Dylan Gabriel, for all of his faults, like he also got not the most tremendous hand. He's following Baker Mayfield, then Kyler Murray, then Jalen Hurts, and then sort of Spencer Rattler, sort of grease over that, and then the defending Heisman winner Caleb Williams. So of course he's not going to look that great, and he didn't throw that many interceptions. Bobby conveniently has left out his fumble statistics there, but it's just. Yeah, he can absolutely turn it around. Not in an Arkansas State game, obviously. Like, it should be 0 faults in this game. Yeah. I'm not saying 0 incompletions, but like there should be nothing to pick on him about in this game. But he's not going to turn it. I'm not going to flip the script all of a sudden because he performed well against Arkansas State.
That's fair.
Here's the thing with Dylan Gabriel that I feel like not a lot of people are talking about, and it should be talked about more often.
His fumbles.
Well, yeah, well, okay, I understand that. Yes, he did have a problem with fumbles. But in terms of expectations of him, I feel like we threw Dylan Gabriel into a higher echelon of kind of expectations last year because he had already been playing in Jeff Lebby's system at UCF. People were like, "Oh, he knows what he's doing. He can hop right into this first year system, and it should be a pretty seamless transition." Here's the thing: he was a first-time quarterback in a brand new system that he's never gone to. And Jeff Lebby was, brand new as well. Like, why are we thinking like he just gets a free pass just because he played with him a couple years before? Like, I think that's just a little bit ridiculous. And now that he's actually played a year last year in this system, he should at least get some of those, wrinkles out of his play and those little tiny mistakes that we'd see from him every once in a while. Hopefully we get those out of his game now that he's more comfortable in this system.
I agree. I'm optimistic that we will see a better version of Dylan Gabriel. I don't know how much better he can get. I think we've kind of seen a pretty high mark. Keep in mind, this is a guy who is nearing top 10 in, I believe, all-time passing touchdowns. Or passing yards. He's a guy who's done a lot in college over his years, both here and at Central Florida. So I don't know. I don't know if his ceiling is if we haven't seen basically him at his ceiling, but I think he will be better, more comfortable, and that's what I'm certainly looking for.
Yeah, the thing is, he just didn't progress through a lot of like his routes in terms of the offense last year, and that was the thing that I yelled about all the time. Seems like he'd look at his first, wide receiver, and if it wasn't there, everything would break down. He'd panic. That says to me either, is there a character flaw and he just doesn't really do well with pressure, or I think obviously a part of this contributing here is he needs to learn the system even better and get comfortable in his own skin, and therefore he can progress through the offense and find different wide receivers. So that is by far the biggest thing that I'm looking for from Dylan Gabriel this season is, can he go through option 1, 2, and 3 and work outside the pocket and do well under pressure?
Yeah. And Bobby just threw a comment up from 1982 in the chat, and I absolutely agree with that. Half of Dylan Gabriel's 6 picks last year were against Baylor. And I think realistically, like he said, if you take those 3 picks out of that game, OU wins that Baylor game, which I wholeheartedly agree with, right? Because the inverse of that is Dylan Gabriel caused us to lose to Baylor.
I mean, yeah, he was a huge contributing factor to that team. But obviously there are a lot of other things going on in Baylor as well. But we have, like you said, Ty, such a high, expectation of quarterbacks in this OU football program. And Dylan Gabriel is a very competent quarterback, but I expect more from him. And I think that he should rise to that occasion this year.
Yeah. I do want to say, to Dylan Gabriel's credit, it's also yet to be seen if Jeff Lebby can really develop a quarterback, because you have to, turn the clock back. OU's had really good quarterback development even prior to Lincoln Riley. I mean, prior to Lincoln Riley, now you're talking about Josh Heupel, who, look at what he's doing in terms of developing quarterbacks that are getting all sorts of buzz and, really, really excelling in the SEC with Hendon Hooker. And obviously, he's a head coach over there. Bit of a different dynamic. It's not just his show as he was as the OC at Oklahoma. I'm not sure why it's so hard to talk for me right now, but OU has had a really, really good run of, head coaches and offensive coordinators for the past, since pre-Sam Bradford, in developing quarterbacks. And that's something that also can't be, not to cast stones at Jeff Lebby, but it's, you also have to appreciate that. That came to me, Bobby, and you're talking about, I'm not sure how much more he has to develop. Some of that might not be his fault necessarily. If we just don't have coaches that can develop at the level that we have had in the past. I mean, Lincoln Riley can develop quarterbacks like no one else. And then, like I just touched on, Heupel obviously also able to develop very, very successful quarterbacks, especially when it comes to leading teams and winning games. So, that has to be, you have to give him the benefit of the doubt there as well, because it's college. They're here to learn, when it comes to football. And he could have, more talent than some of these other guys that have performed better than him. And sometimes it's just the coaching hand that you get dealt.
Yeah, I mean, we've been on a pretty incredible run of offensive coordinators, from Lincoln Riley, everything with Heupel was really good. Kevin Wilson obviously has done great now, the head coach at Tulsa. I think the only one you can say that, I mean, because obviously you can go back, Mike Leach, Mark Mangino, maybe I can't remember the guy who we had in like 05 who wasn't great. I'm blanking on him, but
Yeah, you're not going to get any help from me here.
Yeah, he's clearly not great, but I remember everybody being upset about him. One of Stoops' old buddies. Anyways, it's been a great run, and I mean, we'll see where
Chuck
Long
yes.
and Kevin Wilson.
Kevin Wilson was great. Chuck Long
was a two-hat situation.
Yeah, which same with Josh Heupel. He was one of the two hats. Wasn't great, but to me, I feel like it's been a good run, and Levy obviously was probably the hottest name in offensive coordinators at the time, but we'll see how it goes. Obviously, his work at Ole Miss was great. So if that success continues over at OU, we'll see how it goes. But I kind of want to keep talking about quarterbacks. I know we've talked about a lot, but there's that second end, and I feel like one of the most fun parts of these games is after you get the big lead, put in the backups. And to me, it's our first chance to see Jackson Arnold, 10th overall recruit from the class of 2023, fourth quarterback in that ranking as well by the 247 composite. Pretty massive deal. You got him early. Jeff Lebby, I believe, the second he resigned at Ole Miss, walked into Jackson Arnold's living room and offered him. So a pretty big QB here, filling the void of our, I can't remember who we had before the previous guy Lincoln Riley had. But yeah, Jackson Arnold, probably not a big deal this year because, barring Dylan Gabriel getting hurt, he probably won't see much first team action, but this is the guy for the future. And getting to have him play live action ball. I mean, frankly, that's the only reason I have a ton of interest in staying for the second half, with the temperature being what it's going to be. And I know there's always a joke about me talking about the weather too much, but with the temps looking to be like 107, it's going to be a little bit of a conversation, at least from a fan perspective. But I tell you what, I'm sticking around. I'm going to sweat it off to watch Jackson Arnold because I want to see this guy play ball.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and Jimmy asked this in the chat, like, how much time are we expecting to see Jackson Arnold play? In a perfect world, I think, Dylan Gabriel comes out and they put up a lot of points in the first half, and then DG gets sat, and then we see Jackson Arnold for third quarter and then halfway through the fourth, and then you'll see like a General Booty and Davis Bevel come through in that last part of the fourth quarter. I really think Jackson Arnold has the potential to come in at random times this season just for some kind of change of pace. He has so much talent that, yes, I don't think he's going to start at quarterback if Dylan Gabriel's healthy this year, but so much talent to where it's like, I think it's going to be positive for him to get on the field as much as possible throughout the year. We're not going to worry about a red shirt with him. So having a game like this is so important because this is going to be the longest stretch for the most part that he's going to play a game this season with Arkansas State. SMU, I can't guarantee you. Tulsa, I feel like we can still get a decent run from him. But we know in Arkansas State, we're going to get a lot from Jackson Arnold. So it's even more important from Dylan Gabriel to do well early so we can get even more time from Jackson Arnold.
Ty?
Yeah, I agree with Jamison on one big thing before I roll into mine is he's not going to be a redshirt guy. I don't think he's already, he's got the size. Obviously it's hard to take high school development, but I mean, you're talking about a guy who's 5-star recruit, was the Gatorade Player of the Year, was the player in the state of Texas, I believe, or the DFW Metroplex, which is, more impressive than being the top player in like most other states. So he's proven himself. He was able to run in high school, which is always a good thing. You have a quarterback who's like 4 or 5-star recruit, but then they're a pocket passer in high school. That's kind of, I start to worry about their credibility a little bit. But he is the future, and I think protect him, but also get him the most amount of playing time that you can. I mean, I'm looking at it as this year is not one to be slept on. We need to realistically, we could go I'm not going to say we could go undefeated this year, but we have a very simple schedule. And even if we produce a slightly better team than we did last year, we will appear to be significantly improved. So I really think this year is just about developing guys like him, guys that will be here for longer. And I think it's important to ease him into stuff. Like someone just said, put him in some pressure, put him in some real pressure times if we can, but also just get him those game reps and build him up, build his confidence. Don't wear him out. Don't hurt him as we roll into, next year and the years beyond, where he can really start to hit his stride and where it's really going to matter.
Yeah. And I think that's where, that is the point of Jackson Arnold for sure, because he's not, from what I've heard too and read and everything, he's not quite there yet, which he's a freshman. Most freshmen aren't there yet. So getting him a little bit of live game reps, real college football reps. I'm with you, Ty. That'll be absolutely incredibly important for sure. Shout out to Mr. John for that comment, by the way. Shout out to everybody joining us live. 1982, Jimmy, etc., etc. We'll call you out and read off these comments and questions in a bit. So keep them coming, to say the least. Also shout out Michael Whitman as usual. But let's move on to some more guys we're excited about. Unless you have anything else to say on Jackson Arnold, Jamison.
No, I think really, like, in terms of keeping the theme of the offense, I think one of the biggest question marks of this offense is who are we going to have coming out on the field on RB1? And I've heard a lot of people start talking. I think Marcus Major could be that guy. Yeah, he's getting a lot of first team reps. Gavin Sawchuk seems like he's been a little bit hindered in terms of his injury status as of recently. So maybe like the pipe dream that we had talked about in the past couple episodes about him being the guy that come out in the first drive for the Sooners might not be there. So Javonte Barnes versus Marcus Major, who's going to come out there in that first snap? And even if, Marcus Major comes out in that first snap, who's going to have the better stat line? Because I guarantee you that RB1 position is going to still be a battle after this game.
Yeah, Ty's had those diamond hands on Marcus Major stock, so I'm about it.
Yeah, years in the making. Honestly, I feel like this RB1 debate, and I don't think this is necessarily even a bad thing. I could see this being something that isn't even settled till late in the season, maybe even never settled. The perfect world, and this opens up a bigger debate, specifically, really big in the NFL right now. But in a perfect world, your running back is not someone that you super have to rely. Like, if you're doing things correctly, you should be able to plug and play with most running backs in your system. Obviously, people are, a little bit faster, a little bit better game sense, ball security, obviously a big one, and those little things do add up and matter. But I could see us really not necessarily even having to have an RB1. And this is not trying to make an excuse for Marcus Major. I think he's going to be RB1, but I could see us in a situation, ideally, where, the line and the execution is just in a place where you don't necessarily even have to have, RB1 situation where you have like I'm not going to say we want to pass up on having like an Adrian Peterson, but ideally the system should be where, especially if you're talking about just those runs to, pull the defenses in a little bit and just try to get 4 or 5 yards, that should be something that anyone can do. And that would be perfect, especially when it comes to wear and tear and things like that, especially in this first game.
Yeah, I love a good running back room by committee. I think that's great. And like you said, obviously you would love just an absolute star, but with how the game is, you don't want to, the feature back era isn't a thing. And if it is, you never want to rely on one guy. It's just not feasible or sustainable for how football is right now.
I do want to say, I don't think the feature back era will ever completely die in college, just because so many teams and you have the massive disparities in talent, and you always have those generational talent. Like, you're always going to have like a Derrick Henry, Marshawn Lynch, someone else that is going to be a feature back for someone, I'm sure. I don't think that'll ever completely die in college. But yeah, that NFL stuff carries over. And like you said, Bobby, that era of a team relying on a heavy RB1 is just not there anymore.
Mm-hmm. Here's the thing that we haven't thought about, and I think you kind of might have piqued my interest with this, Ty, is, I don't think college will move to this, RB by committee like the pros are right now to try to get this, wear and tear off the running backs. But kind of on the flip side of that, if we're having guys like, Gavin Sawchuk, Javante Barnes, who are really up and coming guys as sophomores, but they're playing in a 3 RB system, you can almost pitch to them right now and saying, like, this is a positive that you can keep fresh legs. You're not getting hit too much. Your overall snap count isn't going to look like it's that large compared to other RB1s, say like a Jonathan Taylor at Wisconsin who got like millions of snaps. If you play in our system and show things on tape, there are going to be teams in the NFL that are going to want you more just because you played in a system where you didn't get beat up over and over and over. So the moral of the story is, say Marcus Major goes out and maybe he leads us in snaps this year or in carries for running back. I'm not concerned that Javante Barnes' talent is going to have any kind of impact for his NFL draft status.
Yeah, it's not like the quarterback situation at all.
Yeah, especially, I think there is a question of tread on the tires, so to say. So, yeah, I agree. That is absolutely a bright spot if he isn't having to take the lion's share of carries. And I don't think I don't think it looks bad on any running back, really, if they're not being the only guy.
Mm-hmm. So, Jamison, you could see the future for running backs being almost like a pitchers in baseball situation where you're looking at pitch counts on arms and things like that, wear and tear, and you're looking at statistics in relation to number of attempts instead of just overall stats, something like that. Is that what you're saying?
I guarantee you college coaches are having this conversation with the running backs right now with what the running back conversation in NFL with Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, all of these guys not getting the Saquon Barkley, not getting the contracts extensions that they deserve because of how long they've been playing the game at running back. So I really do think, programs like OU, programs like Alabama, unless they have and programs like Texas will play multiple running back by committee because they're trying to get ahead of things, unless you have a talent like a Bijan Robinson, say Javante Barnes this year, it's absolutely undeniable. Every single time he touches the ball, it's electricity, and it is a step above, Gavin Sawchuk and Marcus Major. OU coaches got to go okay, I understand we're trying to play RB by committee, but we play so much better with him in the backfield. He's going to get the lion's share of the carries. But if it truly is, the talent is very close to each other, OU should not have any problem giving, say Marcus Major 12 carries, Javante Barnes 9, 10 carries, and Gavin Sawchuk 6 with more passing downs.
Yeah, and I will say that point you made about Bijan was really interesting because even though he did get a lot of carries, they also had Roschon Johnson that they would put in, a player who got drafted. So, even the best of the best, having a guy to rotate in, lighten the load, always a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this offense should be a lot of fun. Really kind of the overweening thing that I'm looking for in this game is I want to see big plays. That is the absolute biggest thing that will get the crowd into it early, bring people's optimism. Obviously really fun to watch, but at the same time, it means that we're executing our formations and our plays and picking apart the defense.
Yeah, because this isn't a game to look at how's the offensive line doing? They should dominate.
No, they're going to do what they do.
Whoever's there, they should dominate. This isn't that type of thing. And I'll go as far as saying defensively, I don't think there's, a ton to really look at. It's one of those where it's if they do their job, that's great. They were supposed to. If things get bad, then yes, you panic. But it's one of those yeah, you should handle Arkansas State. Don't get super thrilled about it. You need an example of that? Look at last year where we thought the defense was fixed at the first couple games. And then we got a really, really rude awakening against Kansas State, right after non-conference finished. So,
yeah,
defensively, it's yeah, well, a little fun, a little bread and circuses, but, I don't want, you just don't get too excited.
I'll pose a question for both of you. What amount of points from Arkansas State total would make you happy, with this point level number and below, where I felt like our defense did a good job?
10. I think you hold them to 10, and I'm okay with that. I know that sounds like a lot, but or not like a lot, but I know that seems like kind of a low number, but come on, that's one kind of garbage touchdown and then they kick a field goal. I think I have high standards, but Arkansas State's not good. So I think 10 to me, it would be a pretty solid number.
I'm going to give you all an answer that you're going to hate. It depends. So, like, I could see a situation where 7 is worse than, 17, because it matters like how it's occurred, right? If we have just a terrible, like, they're able to move the ball a few times and then just a terrible, like, execution, missed assignment, touchdown, I'm going to feel a lot worse about than just garbage time. They keep big people out there and they're just throwing the playbook out and they get a few on like the third stringers or something. It should be 0. Ideally, it should be 0. Our, second, third string guys should still be able to hold the line defensively. And I think defensively, it's like I talked about. As long as you don't see missed assignments and everything else, it should be 0. It should not be a game of chance with this big of a mismatch. It should be like a chess match or something, and we're the better chess player. There's no like level of chance that comes into that where you should be losing if you're like a chess grandmaster and you're playing someone that's never played chess. We're not playing like a game of chance here. So I think it should be 0, but maybe 17 was a high example. I could see a situation where 3 or 7 is worse than Bobby's 10. So I'll go with 14, but it really depends on how they're occurring. I mean, 7 and it's off a pick 6, I'd argue is worse than 10, and they just have 2 garbage time drives. So it really does depend, and it's all on our end, really.
Yeah, I think the asterisk here is really, I don't want Arkansas State to score a touchdown in the first half. That's I think the biggest thing. If we can hold them without a touchdown in the first half, and then we have our second and third units come in for the defense in the second half, I think I'm okay with kind of some sloppy touchdowns, some sloppy play, because at least we're trying some things.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is how much does the first unit give up? Yeah, I think that's situationally Ty and you right on the money. It depends on how it happens. I'm with you. Do we even want to kind of talk about guys who we think who are excited about seeing? Because I think for me, like, my first thought is like, I wonder what happens with Peyton Bowen. Where do they put him? 16th overall recruit, 2nd overall safety in the 23 class. But also, I don't think they show that. I don't think they show their hand on what they'll do with Peyton Bowen. So I think if anything, they'll just kind of show him as a straight up safety.
See, I disagree with you there, Bobby. I think that they're going to play him in different spots throughout this game because he needs reps. So we have such a strong safety room, above Peyton, that he needs to go and get big time reps at positions like that nickel cornerback and like possibly the cheetah as well, because Key Lawrence / Reggie Pearson on one side and then Billy Bowman on the other is a super hard seat to take as a starting position. So if you really think Peyton Bowen is that guy and is one of our best 11 football players on the defense, which I think that there's a really strong argument for that just from the limited amount of tape that we've seen from him thus far, you've got to get him some run at different positions. There's not going to be like a scouting report where we're going to come into, I don't know, Cincinnati, and they're like, oh, I've seen Peyton Bowen be playing at like 3 or 4 positions, and I feel like I can pick apart OU's defense because of that. I just don't think that showing our hand with Peyton Bowen is really a big deal at all.
That's fair, because I mean, who's the first opponent you'd be actually worried about scouting? I kind of think it's Texas. I mean,
they're not going to be watching Arkansas State tape that seriously. Like, come on, they're going to be looking at the other ones.
Yeah, you're right. So yeah, let Peyton Bowen go around the field. I love it. I want that to be the answer anyways. I don't like boring football. I want to see cool stuff happen. I'm going to be out there sweating, up in, my seats all the way up by the press box. So yeah, I don't want to, I don't want to be watching, boring, vanilla football the entire time. I want to have a little bit of excitement.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much showing your hand really anywhere on the defensive side. If you show that, someone or a certain position group or something is extremely weak, then that can definitely show your hand. But obviously offenses are planning to to deal with defenses all season. But I think that defensively, especially once you get into conference play, you're generally much more reactive to the talent and the playbook on the other side of the ball than the offense is to you. Like, obviously, every good offense is adjusting to the defenses and stuff, but I really think I don't think you're really changing anyone's playbooks or revealing your hand by testing someone out all over, especially if they have the skill to do it. And I agree with Jamison, and it kind of leads into one of my earlier points about how this should essentially be more or less a practice is get him these in-game reps, and hopefully, it's unlikely to show up against Arkansas State. And this goes for sort of every position group, but hopefully if there are any issues, they do at least, show symptoms or something in this game so that they can be, mitigated or treated, whatever term you want to use, before, that's the downside. The double-edged sword to these layup games early is like OU last year. You can have some issues that maybe don't show their severity until you're deep into the season, and then it's getting a little late to do something about it because now you have 4 days and then you're back on the road against another heavy conference opponent again. So I do think that, Peyton Bowen especially, play him wherever you can. I think get people the reps in. I don't necessarily know that the reps are going to be that quality, even if you just focused him in one group because of the skill level of the opponent. So, yeah, I think it makes sense for not just him, but for him specifically to put him, everywhere you think you could possibly use him and just see if stuff happens.
Yeah, I'm about it.
Yeah, Bobby, you're wrong. That's what we're saying.
I'm cool with that. This is one thing I'm okay with being wrong on, because I don't, like I said, I want it to be fun. I want to see what happens with him. I want to see the secrets of this team. What's been stewing, the past couple months. I'm ready to get a taste of it. It's like, the off season is like cooking a big old batch of chili. You're sitting there waiting for it. You're smelling it, and as it gets closer, you're just ready to dive on in. So for me, I want to see what's going on under that lid. I want to see what Brent and crew have been cooking.
Yeah, and I think, kind of putting a bow on this safety room, I want to see at least one of our safeties get an interception in this game, and that is a very low bar. I think it's a very low bar, but I think Billy Bowman is the type of guy that can get it. I'll be looking for him as kind of my prediction of, I think Billy Bowman will get an interception in this game and make a big time play. But I could also see it from Key Lawrence as well. I could see it from Peyton Bowen, whenever it's the third or fourth quarter, does Robert Spears Jennings do it as well? Like, this safety room is really special. I'm not making a bold statement here thinking that the safety room will get a turnover.
You kind of hope for some turnovers, honestly, to force it. And, as we know all too well, that's not exactly something you can control all the time, whether or not you get turnovers, and it shouldn't be a part of your game plan. Alex Grinch. But
I guess that's just me. Oh my God, he's in my brain. I need turnovers. I need speed.
But it's Arkansas State, so you should be able to force takeaways. So yeah, no, I'm with you. I want to see that too. I would love to see that out of the safeties. Some hard hits, big sacks out of the D line and linebacking crew. You want to see that exciting stuff. You want a little bit of optimism. I mean, you can't take it too far. You can't get too excited.
We're talking about safeties, and then Alex Grinch's speed D. I just had a random flashback to just the absolute pinnacle of Alex Grinch speed D at OU. I think it was, maybe you could help me, Bobby. I think it was 2020, maybe 2019. We had that big Buki interception at home, and he was going to take it like 95 yards for a pick six, and then he fumbled it at like the 5. That was
Kansas 2020.
That was it. Peaked there. That was just the most stereotypical Alex Grinch speed D, undersized, speedy guy. Kind of gets the play, and then just the worst possible execution.
I don't want any hype for Peyton Bowen from Bobby, because Bobby said Brendan Radley-Howes is going to be like an All-American essentially as a freshman that year. So let's just say, Peyton Bowen, you're completely different than that. We're going to move on from those safeties because I don't want Bobby to talk about them anymore and jinx them into a Buki, I guess, different kind of realm. But I think a guy on this defense in the first unit that I'm looking forward to seeing how he plays is Jared Kanik, because I know that there's been some kind of back and forth. Is he really going to be that Mike starting linebacker this year? And we know Danny Stutzman is already slotted in at the will, but will Jared Kanik next to Danny Stutzman, his best friend, look like a seamless inside linebacker room to where they are really, really good second line defense and can come up and make plays and plug runs? I think I'm really excited to see him because honestly, he's really, really fun to watch. And at the same time, I think he needs to make a big, statement so guys like Connor Neer and Kobe McKenzie don't come chomping at his ankles.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I mean, Kanik has been a name that we've obviously been excited about for a while, but he's not an unquestioned starter. And I love having competition. I love having that little bit of spice in there. But yeah, I think for everybody in that linebacking core, this is a chance to make a statement, to make some plays and, get some snaps in meaningful moments.
Yeah, it's just the big thing with the inside linebacker group. It should be like you said it and forget it. Like Jaron Kanik's got so much talent, and Danny Stutzman's got so much talent, but there's still some things where it's like they got to put the IQ thing in and make sure they're plugging and playing coverage as well with everything. So hopefully, I mean, like having best friends start right next to each other in a position where linebackers are such a big vocal leader of this defense. A lot of them are the ones getting the plays and getting people into position. If you have that chemistry amongst those two, I feel like that's best case scenario. So I'm cheering for Kanik to really become that guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's obviously highly recruited. You want that potential to pan out. So would love to see love to see Jared Kanik pan out. Any more kind of thoughts on the defense, Jamison, or Ty, any thoughts on the linebacking core?
Well, thoughts on the linebacking core? No, not necessarily. I mean, maybe to one up, Jamison said he'd like to see at least one interception from the secondary. I'd like to see at least one forced fumble from the linebackers. I think that'd be cool. And, not a layup, but it's something that's plausible. But defense as a whole, I think, and I forgot to mention this on the offense as well. Obviously, it's easier to do it on the offense, but no pre-snap penalties should be had. I think on the defensive side, I would tie that into as well. No situation where we have to call a timeout because we're not set defensively. That would just be a terrible, terrible sign. Obviously fixable at this point in the season, but defensively, I mean, I don't have anything for a specific position group. I think that's kind of because of the opponent we're playing. But yeah, shouldn't have things before the snap. And back to my greater point about just confusion, everyone should know what's going on.
Yeah, I think Danny Stutzman really should kind of be that person that gets everyone in the right position because he's been playing for a lot of snaps now early on in his career. He should be a leader for this defense. So hopefully it shows. But I understand, like, yes, we're playing Arkansas State, but I think the cheetah position is something we'd be remiss not to talk about. Is it going to be Deshaun McCullough? Is it going to be Harrington? Harrington should get the start. From what we've heard. But Deshaun McCullough is just so fun, and he's the type of guy that's going to play a lot in this game, and fans are going to be ooh and ahhing for. He's going to be so much fun to watch. Just like there's going to be some series, like I don't know how y'all watch defense. Like maybe a lot of people will just watch the offense and just see where the ball goes. I'm going to key in and just watch Deshaun McCullough for 5 or 6 snaps in a row and just see what he does and see how he kind of works throughout this defense.
Yeah, and McCullough, I mean, I think the reason why he's not, the starter at Cheetah, why Harrington has that spot, is because with McCullough, he's a all-out go hit somebody type of guy. He's a situational guy in a way. When you see him, he's going for the kill. You don't want him stepping back and pass pro. You don't want him kind of trying to cover slot, which obviously being versatile is important, but this is the type of game where you just kind of unleash him and just have some fun, get the crowd going. Game. Yeah, he should absolutely destroy these people. So McCullough, yeah, that would be a big deal.
And let me say something about Harrington, because I feel like we've hear the same story over and over. It's like, oh, he's doing so great, and like he's undeniable in practice, and like he's going to be our starter, he's going to be our guy. And then like he comes out in the game and just things fall a little bit flat. He's got a lot to prove. Is he just a practice player? Is he just a guy that looks good whenever the cameras aren't on, and whenever the cameras come on, he messes up? I think this is his last go. We've seen twice now that he's been a practice guy and not a game guy. So 3 strikes you're out if it's for Harrington, if he doesn't come out and show out this season. But if I think McCullough is a pretty good consolation prize.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And obviously a lot of hype with him coming into the season with his experience at Indiana, honorable mention all Big Ten. We've talked about it a ton, and for good reason. And I've had a lot of I've made a lot of graphics based on like newcomers. I had Rondell Bothroyd on here, super senior. This is a 6-year transfer from Wake Forest. Yeah, he's just gonna do his job. I don't think it'll be that exciting, but it'll be pretty cool to see him, I guess.
I don't know. He's gonna get after the quarterback, man. I think he could get a couple sacks.
Yeah, this defensive line should absolutely just raise hell. So I'm excited about it, to say the least. Any other bits on the defense? I think we kind of got everything covered.
Ty?
I think defensively, I understand that the personnel, to a lesser extent, are going to be here for longer. But to go back to my sort of what I had to say on Jackson Arnold, last year, consider it a wash. Defensively, I think what I would really, really like to see is to start to see the foundation being built for the defense that we want to have in the future, especially as we transition to the SEC. And sometimes that can mean, just plugging holes with very, very, very senior transfer portal guys, whether they be, juniors coming in now or super seniors that only have 1 year. But sometimes, it can be really beneficial, even as Venables is establishing himself as a head coach, to just bring these guys in, plug the holes that are there. And then especially if you can do sort of a resume flip, because, he wasn't necessarily in a situation where he was super being doubted, but, the constant argument about Lincoln Riley, right, is he only had transfer quarterbacks for his first couple years, his first, 4 years, actually. So you can do the same thing to a lesser extent, much less flashy, obviously, for Venables, but transfer in your defense, transfer in your D-line, show that you can do something with the D-line as a head coach, because he's shown it at Clemson as an assistant, and then that boosts your recruiting and everything else. So really, if anything, I don't want to say I want to see them function as an advertisement. Obviously, you want what's best for all of these individual players, but plug the gaps that are there. I think that's a great analogy to use for a defensive line, and show that we can put a product out on the field that can, especially on the defensive side, especially on the D-line side, just put size and push people around and plug gaps and stop plays at or behind the line of scrimmage. And, this goes for the linebackers and the D-line especially. This is my big takeaway. It's come to me as I've done this monologue. Defensively, especially for the linebackers and the D-line, this year in this game especially, I want to see plays ended at first contact. We should not have to have, obviously I want multiple people, because that means our scheme and our execution is on point if we're getting multiple points of contact at first contact or very shortly after. But I don't want to see guys breaking tackle, Arkansas State especially, but all year. And I think that's going to be a good sign of positive things to come if we really cut down our rate of plays that are going to second, third contact before they're stopped.
Mm-hmm. I think your point on the transfers is interesting, Ty, because the way Venables kind of functions, I feel like he would prefer not to have to bring in guys like Bothroyd. Obviously, great talent. It's going to help this team a lot. Bring in guys like Trace Ford, to come into this team and be big-time contributors, because we had such a deficiency at those defensive end positions last year that he needed to bring in some help. He wants to have, progression and development from his young guys. So, we didn't even talk about PJ Adebawore, like he wants that guy to turn into a superstar to where he doesn't have to go get a 1-year starter every single year. That's just how he ran things at Clemson. So I'm interested, and I feel like we'd be remiss as we're coming to the end of this podcast. Josiah Wagner can be a guy that will play early freshman year and then become a guy that can be a starter for cornerback even next year and into his junior year. PJ Adebawore, obviously, and then Jaquaze Petaway and the wide receivers. Like those are 3 big freshmen that obviously, aside from Peyton Bowen and Jackson Arnold, that we need to be really looking for in this game.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, I definitely, in the future, I'll make more graphics, but I definitely think that, our freshman class last year, obviously massive top 5 type of deal. There's a lot of new faces, young faces, and I'm just truly excited to see. So definitely excited to check that out. Anyways, let's kind of dig into like some of the side notes, some of the comments, and we've heard a lot.
Let's talk about Whitman's question before you forget.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll get to the pink out stuff in a little bit, but in terms of what Whitman said, in the vein of questions, one for later. What metrics should be looked at to define this season as a success? Hardware, a target win-loss record, key wins, etc. That's a really good one. And I think, the normal OU expectations is like conference championship and then compete for a national title, be in that range of, college football playoff, that sort of thing. I think we can be realistic and say that's not going to be the case. I don't know about y'all, but for me personally, it's essentially get to the Big 12 championship, be basically in like genuine competition to get there, and then a bowl game in the vein of either New Year's Six or like the Alamo Bowl. I think from a win-loss record, I think you're looking at 10 wins, 9 wins, something like that. And in terms of key wins, it's less of a key win and more, I want to be competitive with Texas. I think you have to see OU improve. I don't know if they can or will beat Texas, but I think it has to be in a position where that game is competitive, because you can't have another blowout. You can't have another game where OU does not look like they belong on the field with a team like Texas, with your chief rival. So to me, that's basically what it is look a lot better, compete for the Big 12 championship. And then the little details, if you can actually get the hardware and take those steps, that's fine. But overall, if you're being competitive, if you're at that level, it means you're doing everything else right. So that's my thoughts on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the bottom line. I think the goal of the season is to not be embarrassed again. What Ty said with the schedule will come. Like, we'll have opportunity to win games. But moving on to the SEC, like a success in my scenario is no embarrassments at all. None.
Ty?
Yeah, so I have an overall take. It ties into, I think, everything that you all mentioned. But I think there's one thing that could almost be considered an intangible that is the most important thing possible for this team where we're at right now. It ties into, execution. It ties into no embarrassments. It ties into performing against your rival. It ties into going to a decent bowl game against another good brand and winning. And it obviously ties into you can't have it without winning. And I think that's OU desperately needs to change the narrative around this program and around Brent Venables. Look at what Deion Sanders is doing at Colorado. They have not played a game yet at all. They're going to win like 3 of them, maybe, one of which being TCU, which is going to be electric. And the buy-in to get people to transfer there, it's all going to collapse. It's all a big fraud over there, but it shows what you can do with just the right marketing and buy-in and everything else. And I think Venables is good enough. This OU team is good enough. This institution, this organization is good enough that we can do some level of fake it till you make it. I'm not saying we haven't made it. OU has obviously made it when it comes to college football. We are a legitimate blue blood, and that is a real thing. But if we're struggling right now, we really need to turn this narrative around, because that's going to drive recruiting. That's going to drive brand deals as that becomes more of a thing. That's going to drive what is the future of success in college football, even as we move into the SEC. Obviously, hype doesn't win games for you, but it can make a big difference. If we have another year of if we're embarrassing against this schedule and we just get absolutely embarrassed against Texas, I think Venables is in the hot seat. And then you're really going to see it hit recruiting at the end of next year, and you're really going to see transfers at the end of next year if we put up a big stinker like we did last year. Again, this year with the schedule that everyone is hearing is so easy and everything else, it will be the collapse in the short term of this program. We really need to turn that narrative around, and we got very lucky with the schedule that we did in terms of getting all the tools that we need to turn that narrative around and say, okay, OU's back on the up and up. They can obviously recruit. And, last year was a fool me once situation. They're not going to get fooled again. Here they come.
Yeah, perfectly said.
And
perfectly said.
If you ask that question as an engineer, obviously terrible answer. There's no, metric that can be measured there. So I'll say 10-win season, win the bowl game against another big brand.
I think that's the easy answer for sure, is hitting your over under. What is that, 10 even, right? Hitting that 10 is a big deal, because that means we probably lost to Texas and dropped one other, but I think dropping two others other than Texas would be a poor season for us.
Agreed. And the schedule paints that, and I think the point about embarrassment, it's you can't be. You can excuse this as like it's a down year, but the people are saying we're bad. They think we're ass. They think we're garbage. And you can talk about the little things all the live long day. You can talk about how we lost all these games by 3 points and it really wasn't that bad. And we really just need to iron all this out. At the end of the day, we were 6-7. You can't be. One thing is 100% sure: you cannot be in that range at all. You cannot lose games by 40 at all. You have to beat Oklahoma. You have to show that you're still the same program, regardless of who's coaching. Lincoln Riley's gone. We're moved on. And that improvement has to be there. 100%. 100%. And I will say, it won't. I think there'll be challenges. There'll be tricky things. And, as we know from and saw from, what Brett Yormark said at the Texas Tech Touchdown Club, the conference is rooting against us. We got one holding call last year. You have to rise above that. And it seems like the team knows that. They know what they're having to do. I've been reading and hearing reports that they've been the officials are bringing in for scrimmages. They're telling them to intentionally make bad calls. Yep. So you have to deal with that, because at the end of the day, nobody's going to give you an excuse. Nobody's going to give you an out. You're OU. You're supposed to win. You're supposed to be good. And if it sucks, if you think that's not fair, you're at the wrong place, man.
Mm-hmm. That's completely true.
I hate that officials thing. So we don't want to go down that. That's it's a big pet peeve. That doesn't make sense when you're looking at like actual training methodologies. That's like, oh, we're going to run a track meet, but to prepare you for something crazy happening, you're only going to run in one shoe. Like it's like practicing fumble recovery all day. It doesn't make sense to bring in officials that are going to make bad calls. Just mentally prepare for that and then execute properly at practice.
And I think probably it's more like if it's borderline, it goes against you.
Yeah, well, we're in practice. They're both.
Yeah, but practice is for practicing fundamentals. It's not for. Yeah,
it's not just. It's probably not all of it, but it's like, hey, we're gonna throw a wrench in this one. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
Yeah. They play so many snaps. Might as well throw in something different. But I think overall that's a really good kind of look for this season. I know, Bobby, we wanted to talk about the Brent Venables and the Pink stuff. I haven't seen any official word on Pink, but I understand that is a rumor circulating. Do you know more information about that?
Right. So 1982's brought it up. Fatty71 brought it up, asking if the Pink out's still on. And yeah, the university has not made any, official thing. Usually Usually they probably would have said something by now, but there are little details about the stadium they haven't dropped yet. We still don't know like new concessions, all that sort of thing. So as the week goes on, we might hear something, but it hasn't been officially sanctioned by the university. If you want to do it, go for it. That's kind of how I'm thinking of it. And until there is an official word of we're doing a pink out, we're doing all that. I mean, I don't think it's disrespectful to wear pink. I don't think it would be a bad thing to wear pink. But in terms of an official 100%, we're doing this thing, the university hasn't said anything. So to answer your question, it's fan led, not university led. If you want to do it, I'm all in on it. I think it's cool. I think it's a great cause. Would love, show support for the Venables family in a really, really tough time. Breast cancer is absolutely horrible, and we're all hoping and thinking the best for Miss Venables. And yeah, we endorse it. If the university doesn't, we do. So I'll put it that way. If you wear pink, go for it. It's fan organized though, so don't. If you're looking at official stuff, if you're waiting on that to give you the go, I'll say maybe don't let that be the determining factor. Just determine it yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say about it. Completely agree. I'd keep an eye on it. I don't know how much I'll be convinced that they will put it out on social media, because I feel like there's a lot of people that don't even have like a pink shirt in your wardrobe. So I don't feel like you're inclined to have to go find a pink shirt. But I'm curious to see how things will change throughout this week and the more we learn.
Yeah, I don't think anyone will call you a jerk if you didn't wear a pink.
Yeah,
not at this stage, anyways. So, I think. Do we have any current?
No, I think that was it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Ty, anything? I don't know if there's anything you wanted to say on that, which is fine.
No, I mean, I could pure speculation, but I could see it happening. If I were in OU's shoes and I wanted to do one, I'd be ordering a bunch of special, whatever the little rollout
I think
things
that's
or something like that. And I don't know that they could pull that off in as short of notice as all this chatter has been. So I could almost see it something that I bet it happens this season, but I don't know if it'll be this game. But again, you all touched on that. We can speculate on stuff like this, but I could see them, scrambling to order stuff right now, but it's not going to happen until, maybe first conference game at home or something.
Yeah. And I will say, we do have to kind of, I will pivot a little bit. We have to bring this up because some people in the comments have been wondering, Ty, where's the cowboy hat? People are upset that the cowboy hat's gone. Visually, for y'all podcast listeners, visually, Ty, as a signature, has been wearing his cowboy hat with the iconic, Sooner Zoomers logo on it. It has not made an appearance in a while. So, Ty, where is it?
Yeah, look, I've been telling Bobby and Blake and Jamison and everyone else that I lost it in the move. I know exactly where it is. It survived the move. I've worn the cowboy hat the past 2 seasons, both of which I lost the weekend spread. So the cowboy hat must be cursed. I cannot risk it. It must be avoided. I didn't wear it. I'm already leading the weekend spread, obviously week 0. And I am tied for the lead with Bobby. We both went 2-5 because we're that good at picks this year. But that shows our competition. We'll get into it later this week. But the captain, Boat Blake, has not picked a game correct all season long so far. So he is currently losing. But yeah, I cannot risk the cowboy hat. And so far, the results seem to be paying off. So the cowboy hat will not be making an appearance for the foreseeable future, I guess, unless something I might bring it out for Red River or something like that, or if I get a comfortable enough lead in the weekend spread that I can risk it. But for now, we must conduct a scientific study. The only possible variable that I can come up with for me losing the weekend spread is the cowboy hat. So we've removed that. We have to do some testing now. Got to wait a little bit. We're going to see the results of testing, and then we're going to evaluate from there.
Yeah, our fan base is clearly heartbroken by its disappearance, but I understand you've lost twice in a row. You need to buck that trend. maybe you wear the hat for the non-weekend spread ones. Maybe there's a nice middle ground, but I don't know. The hat was beloved and is clearly beloved by those. Anyways, I did want to bring up, people talking about SMU 1982, saying that they're not, obviously not Georgia. We were supposed to play them last year, but they should be really good non-Power 5 team. I'm excited about that game. We'll be talking about that a lot next week, of course, when we preview that ball game. And if you're asking about t-shirt stuff for that, SMU striped stadium. So that is 100% university striped stadium. That's going to be that. Yeah, that's pretty much all we have for this episode. Jamison, anything we want to say before we leave?
Now let's cut it off. I'm ready to watch some actually good football this coming Saturday. We've got a fun slate. So if y'all are interested in listening to our podcast for the weekend spread, we will be doing those every single Wednesday. These podcasts will be coming every single Sunday. You will get them at 7:30 Central live on YouTube and then releasing them the next day. We will be on a consistent schedule for you throughout the season. So, every single Monday morning, if you're ready for this upcoming college football, just turn on the Schooner Pod. On the Mondays, we'll have it released for your ride to work. And then also that Thursday, if you want to know the betting odds and what we're picking for that weekend spread slate.
Yep. And our weekend spread slate, it's got some good games, folks. Florida at Utah, South Carolina, North Carolina in Charlotte, LSU, Florida State in Orlando on Monday. It's wonderful. And we even got some fun ones with the Big 12. You got, TCU, Colorado. I think everyone's going to pick, TCU, but there's a chance for some spice there. Our favorite Texas State, the Bobcats, our guy Boko going down to Waco.
Yes.
Baylor. UTSA, Houston, West Virginia, Penn State, which I got to say, by the way, West Virginia, Penn State, that's the Big Ten Saturday night on NBC. Got to bring it up. Fall Out Boy doing the music for NBC's college football coverage. How we feeling about that?
Yeah.
Whoa. It's a custom song about college football, very much like the Carrie Underwood stuff. So, yeah, enjoyed that. And 1982, of course, Texas Tech, Wyoming, and longtime listeners and viewers of the pod know, never trust Wyoming. That never goes well. Never goes well.
I hate Wyoming.
We all do. They're the ultimate wild card, but we have to pick them. So it's going to be a great weekend spread. So make sure to tune into that on Wednesday night at 7:30, or if you're a podcast listener, it'll be there for you on Thursday morning to get you ready for the kickoff, all the week 1 kickoffs. So exciting stuff. Once again, recruiting pod already up. If you've been waiting for some David Stone stuff, that's coming. That's already there. You can go find it now on YouTube. Podcast, it should be already up in your feed. And yeah, also check out Jamison's TikToks. We've been doing a little bit more short form stuff because not all of y'all, not everyone loves to listen to an hour and 15 minutes spiel from all three of us, which is fine. I get it. But if you want little bits, you can go find it there on TikTok, on YouTube Shorts, all of that. Jamison's been putting in the work, doing great stuff there, to say the least. But yeah, that's all we have for week 1. Cannot wait for the weekend spread. And, on behalf of me, Jamison, and Ty, we will see you next week to talk about SMU, what happened on Saturday, and yeah, the season is officially on. So y'all have a great weekend. Start hydrating now for the game. It's 11 a.m. Oklahoma heat, 108 degrees. Get the water in. Mix in a water. What? It's gonna be brutal, man.
I just haven't looked at that weather. That's just gonna be ridiculous.
Yeah, it's gonna be hell, man. I'm still gonna be tailgating, but yeah, that could be fun. But anyways, we will see you next time. Have a great weekend. Hydrate. And Boomer Sooner, everybody.